Hayom Yom Shishi B'Shabbos is Friday. I believe it's Chov Zayin Tammuz, Zach Tammuz, the 27th day in Tammuz. Tomorrow is Shabbos Mevorach Menachem of, and it's also Matas Masei, which is of Rosh Chazak. What should be pointed out, or at least I will point out, is that in a way this is the end of the Torah. Because remember, it's the end of the Torah. Because Sefer Dvarim is Mishnah Torah. Sefer Torah is Dvarim is a repetition. And the Gemara says, Meishe me piatz me kosrei, that Dvarim Moshe Rabbeinu wrote on his own. In other words, there's so many different opinions about how this is understood. But in one way or another, Dvarim is separate from the other four Svarim of the Torah, and there's nafkeminas halacha l'maaseh. There's practical differences between Sefer Dvarim and the other four Svarim, and how the Torah is learned. The first four Svarim are considered, for lack of words, holier, which means they're less comprehensible. You have to accept it more. Sefer Dvarim is considered more down to earth, and like I'm telling you, there's nafkeminas in halacha. So in a way, this is a significant event, and it always occurs in the 3 weeks, and in conjunction usually with the 9 days. Always with the 9 days, you finish Parshas Masei, either Shabbos Mevorchim or the very beginning of Menachem. Of is Matas Masei, you're finishing the Torah. And of course, therefore, Matas Masei discusses the end of the road, the journey. Our Parsha begins, Parshas Masei begins, Eila Masei b'nei Yisrael sh'yosu meretz Mitzrayim. These are the journeys that the Jewish people took when they left Egypt. That it says, Vayez l'masei l'motzeihem, vayichtei Moshe. 42 journeys. Jewish people left Egypt. It took them 42 trips to arrive in Adin Yerech. And as you know, the Holy Baal Shem Tov says that these 42 journeys that are described in the Parsha that are connected with an historic event are the life of a person. Every day, from the Meidani until the Biyotcha Avchid Ruchi, at the end of the day, those that from Meidani until we say Shema Shalamita, Biyotcha Avchid Ruchi, right? You tell the Eibush in the evening, I'm giving you back my nefesh. You gave me my soul in the morning, right? At night you tell the Eibush, Biyotcha Avchid Ruchi, I'm giving you back my Ruchi, my Neshama. And you're going to Kelemis in the morning, Rabba Munasecha, I'm going to get back, you're going to be trustworthy. They translate Rabba Munasecha, great is your trustworthiness. I don't know what trustworthiness is, but what it means is great is your reliability. You can trust Eibishter. You give me a neshama at night, you get back the same one in the morning, and that's B'yedani Lefanecha, and that's B'yad Cha'af Kedruchi. So the Baal Shem Tov says in a day you have 42 journeys. And the Baal Shem Tov also says in a lifetime you have 42 journeys. From the moment the child is born until the final, what's called Hachzaras HaPikoden, the returning of the Pikoden. The safekeeping that the Eibishter gives each one of us, which is our neshama, is also 42 journeys. And, says the Baal Shem Tov, the entire history of the Jewish people and of the whole world is also 42 journeys. Al Yada Yerech. 42 journeys from the moment Yidden leave Egypt until Mashiach Tzidkenu comes. But I want to observe, the 42 journeys don't bring you into Eretz Yisrael, they bring you to the precipice, they bring you to the border. Going into Eretz Yisrael is the 43rd journey. The 42 journeys gets you to the door of going into Eretz Yisrael, but the 42 journeys themselves, even the last one, is Al Yad Yerech. You're on the river Jordan, the Jordan opposite Yerech, Jericho, but you haven't crossed over. So the life of a person is 42 journeys. The history of the world is 42 journeys. The day of a person is 42 journeys, and that's how the Torah finishes. The Torah finishes with the idea of the journey. In other words, if we're going to accept my initial hypothesis, which is that in a very significant way, Parshas Masei, this week's Parsha, Chazak V'nis Chazek is the end of the Torah, it's understood why the very last Parsha in the Torah discusses the journey. Now in this final Parsha, which discusses the journey, Parshas Masei, and it's the journey of the everyday, it's the journey of a lifetime, it's the journey of our history, the issues discussed are very precise, of course, and very significant and very meaningful. In other words, if we accept that Masei is the end of the Torah, and therefore it is a sach hakel, it's a summary of the whole Torah, and a map of life and of history, the details discussed in Parshas Masei become extraordinarily important. Now, Parshas Masei has a lot of very important things. Much of Parshas Masei discusses what happens when you cross over into Eretz Yisrael, when you finally come into the Holy Land, come into the Promised Land. Which means, I suppose, the 42 journeys are over, and you're making the 43rd journey, you're coming into Eretz Yisrael, to the Holy Land. It talks about what happens when you go into Eretz Yisrael. Now, I suppose this is how you have to understand it. Since Parshas Masei, that talks about the 42 journeys, is klolos or pratos, which means it exists on many levels. You have the 42 journeys in a day. You have the 42 journeys in a lifetime. You have the 42 journeys in all of history. So therefore, even when a person finishes the journey and comes into Eretz Yisrael, the journey is not finished. In other words, if in one day a person travels his 42 journeys and he's ready to cross over to Eretz Yisrael, compared to the next day, that cycle is not yet perfect. Which of course explains that even after you can go into Eretz Yisrael, there are all kinds of halachas that govern how to deal with the imperfections. But I'm saying, in other words, if Parshas Masei is not just a story of history, but Parshas Masei is a prediction of reality, which is that over the course of a day and of a lifetime, we make many stops, 42 journeys, and only our 43rd journey is into Eretz Yisrael. When the Torah describes being in an Eretz Yisrael that needs to be protected, for example, one of the things in our Parsha, which follows immediately after, the Torah says the 42 journeys, yes? Al Yadei Yerecha. Then the next pasuk says, when you come into Eretz Yisrael, destroy the idol worship that's there. Because if you don't destroy the idol worship that's in Eretz Yisrael, v'hayu litzninim beinechem u'lashichem b'chidechem, which means you come into Eretz Yisrael, you've gone through 42 journeys, you're in the 33rd journey, you're in the Holy Land, says, oh, now you get rid of Avodah Zarah. I thought once you come into Eretz Yisrael, it's over. There's a raya that is madreges. You come into Eretz Yisrael, you still have to deal with Avodah Zarah. And of course, the question becomes, when Mashiach comes, which means that on some level, you've completed the 42 journeys over the course of all of history. You come into Eretz Yisrael, you open up the Parsha, the same pasuk again. Mashiach came already. And the Torah says you have to get rid of the Avodah Zarah, because you don't get rid of the Avodah Zarah, it will be an obstacle to you. Kum Tachai said on every madrege, after you finish the 42 journeys and you come to the Holy Land, there's still an additional inyan of 42 journeys. And that's what Parshas Masei is about. It talks about the cycle of life and days and history, and how the idea is that no matter how many times you achieve a perfection, there's always a perfection beyond it. Of course, in our Parsha, you have again the B'nai Tzlafchad and their love of Eretz Yisrael, which is, of course, the positive half. That's not dealing with the negative, it's only the positive half. It's the love of the Holy Land. In other words, when you finish with the struggles and the journeys. But you also have a lot of discussions that even though you've come into Eretz Yisrael, the 42 journeys exist on a higher level. And one of the things, and I was thinking about it a lot this year, even before I chose this Maimer, is that in Parshas Masei you have the story of Ari Miklat, Bariches. The laws about killing, which appear in the Torah many times, beginning of course with Aseres Adibres, Lei Tirtzach, do not murder. And since then you have in Parshas Mishpatim, you have halachas of murder. In Parshas Bahar, you have halachas of murder. And I'm sure there are other Parshas, which I'm not, or Parshas Emer, I'm sorry, it's not Parshas Emer, you have halachas of Netzeach, Netzicha, and probably in a few other places, certainly in Sefer Dvorim, in Parshas Shoftim, you have halachas of murder. But probably our Parsha is the most developed discussion in the whole Torah about the Inyan of Makei Nefesh, of killing somebody on purpose and by accident. Yesh bekedei lahamas, ein bekedei lahamas, whether it's made from metal or it's not made from metal, these are all in our Parsha. And of course, one of the things that's discussed in our Parsha is Ari Miklat. Ari Miklat means a refuge. A person who is in fact Makei Nefesh Bishgaga, someone who murders, but he didn't do it wantonly, he didn't do it with intent, it was a mistake, shegig. Now understand that a mistake doesn't mean an accident. An accident is not considered a shegig. An accident is considered a noinus. Someone is killed accidentally, you don't have to go to the city of refuge. Accident in Torah means you have a certain amount of liability. For example, according to some opinions, you wanted to kill Reuven and you killed Shimon, you go to Adi Miklat. You wanted to kill. And then there are many different cases. Shaking doesn't mean an accident. Shaking means negligence. I'm responsible for the death of plenty and plenty because I wasn't responsible. I didn't behave as I'm supposed to. A complete accident, oinus, doesn't go to Adi Miklat. That's the din. That's the halach. So the sitters of refuge are dealing with a person who's a murderer, who has a certain layer, what they call in our culture manslaughter as opposed to murder. Manslaughter means it happened because of negligence. And you have to go to the sitters of refuge, to go to Adi Miklat. What's the poshet the taich of Adi Miklat? The poshet the taich of Adi Miklat is it protects you. The chasidus of Adi Miklat is that it heals you, that it cures you. In other words, Adi Miklat can be translated as a refuge, as an escape. Chassidus loves to translate Adi Miklat not as an escape, but as a center of absorption. It absorbs you, it takes you in. The difference between a shmira, between a protection, and an absorption is the difference between being protected from bad elements and being healed from the negative elements. And in our parsha, you have a quite lengthy discussion on the idea of Adi Miklat. Now, so we had a dvatein on the parsha, which is always very, very good. In other words, I mamish feel that in a certain way, this is the end of the Torah. Sefer Bamidbar is the end of the Torah. Dvarim is a whole new Torah. And why it occurs connected to Shabbos Menachem Av and all the rest, these are next year's Divrei Torah. Yes?